Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us this evening. This is John McDougall. I am the event coordinator here at Murder by the Book in Houston. And before we get into tonight's event, just wanted to give you a quick rundown of what we've got going on in the store. So when you look at the event calendar, you're going to see events listed either as in-store or virtual. We started doing in-store stuff again in January. Next up, we've got Claudia Gray is going to be in the store on Saturday. The next week, we've actually got a full week of in-store stuff. Stephen Lloyd's going to be chatting. No, I'm sorry, Stephen's virtual on Tuesday. Wednesday, Boyd and Beth Morrison are going to be in-store. May Cobb's going to be in conversation with Ashley Winstead in-store on Thursday. Friday, we've got cozy writer Allie Pleiter in-store. And then on Saturday, we're going to be doing two off-site events with Jack Carr at Memorial City Mall. So you can get information about all of those on the website. We're still going to keep doing virtual events. We've got a good mix of them. Tomorrow night, we'll be chatting virtually with Chris Holm. He'll be talking with Matthew Quirk about Chris's new book. So we're super excited about that. So please keep tuning in for the virtual stuff. If you see somebody coming through that's going to be in store, please come see them, as we're kind of now reteaching publishers that people still want to come see authors as well. So we're super excited to do both. Tonight, we're really excited. It's going to be a little bit of a different event. We're going to be chatting with Jason Rekulak about his new book, Hidden Pictures, and we're going to be joined by Doogie Horner and Will Staehle, who are illustrators that helped with the book. So they're going to be sharing some of their artwork and things like that. So we're really excited for tonight's event. To get us started, I'm going to bring Jason out and get him introduced. How are you tonight, Jason?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks. Congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
So Jason is the author of The Impossible Fortress, which was translated into 12 languages and was nominated for the Edgar Award. For many years, he was the publisher of Quirk Books, an independent press where he acquired and edited multiple New York Times bestsellers, and he lives in Philadelphia with his family. Next, I'm going to bring Doogie out on the screen. How are you tonight, Doogie?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us. So Doogie Horner drew the Teddy artwork in Hidden Pictures with the help of his 5-year-old son, Kirby. He moonlights as a stand-up comic and was a quarter finalist on season 5 of NBC's America's Got Talent. As art director of Quirk Books from 2006 to 2017, Doogie designed oddball bestsellers like Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children and Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. He is also the author of a YA novel, This Might Hurt a Bit, from Simon & Schuster, and the holiday classic A Die Hard Christmas, which debuted at number 2 on Amazon and has sold over 100,000 copies. And he lives in Alfred, New York. Next up, we are going to bring out Will Staehle. Find the rights. There we go. How are you tonight, Will?
I'm good. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us. So Will drew the Anya artwork in Hidden Pictures. Before opening his own design studio, he was the art director for HarperCollins Publishers and was named one of the top 20 under 30 visual artists by Print Magazine. He has designed many magical visuals for Stephen King, Michelle Obama, Guillermo del Toro, Michael Crichton, Madeline Miller, Andy Weir, Michael Chabon, Ernest Cline, Sony, Netflix, Disney, Hollywood's famed Magic Castle, and others. And he divides his time between Seattle and Palm Springs. So while they are chatting this evening, if you guys watching at home have any questions, pop those in the live chat on YouTube or the comments on Facebook, and we will get to those in a bit. But for now, Jason, I'm going to turn it over to you to get us started.
Oh, great. Thanks, John. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. This is my first virtual event, so it's a little strange for me, but I'm glad to have Doogie and Will here as my co-pilots. Tonight, I wanted to talk a little bit about how I met these two illustrators and how we came to write this book together. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the book and why there are illustrations in it. It's a mystery with illustrated clues. So it's a unique kind of book in a weird format. To the best of my knowledge, there's not another mystery quite like it. And after I finish, Doogie's going to talk a little bit about he approached the art and maybe show some outtakes. And then Will's going to talk about how he approached his art. And Will also did the cover, so he's going to talk a little bit about that. So, and then, of course, we'll take questions. We all met years ago. I worked as the publisher for an independent press called Quirk Books. And when Quirk started, it was just like 4 people in a room who were like, oh, we should start a book publisher. And we quickly realized that this is going to be hard because we needed books to publish, and I couldn't get writers to give them to us because number one, we didn't have a lot of money. We couldn't really pay big advances. And number two, more importantly, we didn't have a lot of experience. So if you had written an amazing novel, there really was no good reason for you to trust it to us because we had no experience. And so I was starting to panic because it was really hard to find books. And I needed this job. I needed it to work. I had young kids. I was like, we have to do something to make this work. And one of the things I realized early on that we could control is the way the books looked and felt. And we started focusing a lot on that. And I started thinking a lot about fiction. And one of the first books that really became a big success for us was this book, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. This was a great book to publish if you didn't have a lot of money because you didn't have to hire a writer to write an entire book. The book, Pride and Prejudice, existed. It was in the public domain on Project Gutenberg. And all I had to do was hire someone to add like 10,000 words about zombies to the book. It was kind of a mashup. And we were very careful about like the look and feel of this book. Doogie was the art director on it. And we had conversations about how we wanted it to feel like a Penguin classic. We wanted it to feel like books you had to read in high school. So it couldn't look too crazy. It had to look kind of serious. So we used like a Penguin classic font. There's a little logo there. And this book did really well for us. And it sort of unlocked a certain way of thinking about titles that I started to pursue because I was like, okay, let's do more of these. The very next year, I was approached by a guy who was sending me these weird photos he collected of like children that these are real photos of kids from like the early 20th century. And he wanted it to be an art book, but I was like, no, I want to know the story of like these clown children. They're so strange. The images are so evocative. I was like, let's make it. Over the course of a year, we both decided that it should be a novel. It became Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. And once again, we thought a lot about how does this book look? Of course, it has to have a black and white cover because it's set, you know, in I think 1940. And you know, of course, we wanted like these lush Victorian end papers, and you know, just a really nice case and things like that. And a lot of time was spent on the design of that book, and Doogie did all that work too. And I think those two projects brought us to the attention of Will, who was out west, and he was working on this really cool project called Warren the 13th. This is a middle grade, like a children's book, but it is just gorgeously illustrated, gorgeously designed. As soon as he showed me the proposal, I was like, oh my God, this is right up my alley. Sorry, I should have tabbed this page. You know, just insane artwork, insane 2-column designs and illustrations. Just every detail of this book was carefully considered. And we did a lot of books like this together. Will worked on some, Doogie worked on some, I worked on some. And I had that job for a long time. And then eventually I left. I had a chance to write a screenplay for Netflix. And I was like, I have to do this. I have to jump at this opportunity and go for it. So I left my full-time job and I became a full-time writer. And I found, like, to my surprise, that it was really lonely. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in my house all the time, all day by myself. I always thought I was an introvert, but after working for 20 years trying to sell books, I think that job made me into an extrovert. It made me appreciate being around other people more and interacting with people and collaborating. So as I sat in my room and woke up every day to a blank page, I was like, you know what? I want to work with these two guys again. I miss working with them. I'm going to come up with something for us to work on. And that something became this book, Hidden Pictures. But the original impulse was, this is going to be a mystery. There are going to be clues that will be illustrated, and they will draw it, and I will write it. And to give you a sense of how the book works, they say you're not supposed to read at these things, especially on Zoom, I imagine. But I'm just going to read you a really short passage from the story and then show you some of the art in the book, just to sort of set it up for you and give you some context. This scene takes place, I think it's like on page 10. At the start of this story, our hero, Mallory Quinn, she's a young woman from South Philly. She's had a difficult past. We don't know all the details when the book opens, but she's interviewing for a job in this beautiful suburb in this beautiful house with this nice family. The family's been away in Barcelona for 2 years, but they've just returned from the States and they need a nanny. So in the scene, Mallory has just gone to the house. She's met with the mother, Caroline. And Caroline says, okay, come on, let's go in the family room now. I'm going to introduce you to Teddy, the 5-year-old boy that they're hiring her to watch. And Caroline's going to be watching to see how Mallory interacts with her kid. So this is that scene. The child is sprawled on the rug with a spiral-bound pad and some yellow number 2 pencils. At my arrival, he looks up and flashes a mischievous smile, then immediately returns to his artwork. Well, hello there, Teddy. Are you drawing a picture? He gives his shoulders a big, exaggerated shrug, still too shy to answer me. Honey, sweetheart, Caroline says. Mallory just asked you a question. Again, he shrugs, then moves his face closer to the drawing until his nose is practically touching the paper, like he's trying to disappear inside it. Then he reaches for a pencil with his left hand. Oh, I see you're a lefty, I tell him. Me too. It's a common trait in world leaders, Caroline says. Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan, they're all left-handed. Teddy maneuvers his body so I can't see over his shoulders. I can't see what he's working on. I'll tell you a funny story, Caroline says. The whole time we lived in Barcelona, we couldn't get Teddy to pick up a pencil. We bought him markers, finger paints, watercolors. He showed no interest in art. But the moment we moved back to the States and moved into this house, suddenly he's Pablo Picasso. Now he draws like crazy. Caroline lifts the top of the coffee table, and I see it doubles as some kind of storage chest. She removes a sheaf of paper that's an inch thick. My husband teases me for saving everything, but I can't help myself. Would you like to see? Definitely. Down on the floor, Teddy's pencil has stopped moving. His entire body has tensed up. I can tell he's listening carefully, that he's focusing all of his attention on my reaction. Oh, this first one is really nice, I tell Caroline. Is that a horse? Yes, I think so. No, Teddy says, springing off the floor and moving to my side. That's a goat because he has horns on his head, see? And a beard. Horses don't have beards. Then he leans into my lap and turns the page, directing my attention to the next drawing. Is that the weeping willow out front? Yes, exactly. If you climb it, you can see a bird's nest. I keep turning pages, and it isn't long before Teddy relaxes in my arms, resting his head against my chest. I feel like I'm cradling a large puppy. His body is warm, and he smells like laundry that's fresh out of the dryer. Caroline sits off to the side, watching our interaction, and she seems pleased. The drawings are all pretty standard kid stuff. Lots of animals, lots of smiley-faced people on sunny days. Teddy studies my reaction to every drawing, and he soaks up my praise like a sponge. Now, at this point, if we could go to the slides, or if I can share my screen, I want to show you what the book does. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So on the left, you can see the text that I just read you. And in that scene where Mallory's looking at pictures of a goat and a weeping willow. The book just starts introducing those images. And what we tried to do in this book was anytime Mallory finds an illustration, you find it too, and you're seeing it right when she's seeing it. So you can study the goat as you turn the page. Oh, there's the weeping willow tree that we just read about. And then these pictures aren't pictures that you've heard about, but I'm just going to trust that like you can study them and reach this, reach your own conclusions about them. So let's just flip through and see what Teddy's been working on the past couple of weeks. We've got birds in a bird bath. We've got Teddy with a sun and a bear, Teddy riding a rabbit. And then, there's Teddy with this thing. And then the book just launches right back into text. We're back in the story. Caroline seems surprised to find this last picture in the stack. I meant to set this one aside, she says, but now she has no choice but to explain it. This is Teddy and his special friend. Anya, Teddy says. Her name is Anya. Right, Anya, Caroline says, winking at me, encouraging me to play along. We all love Anya because she plays with Teddy while Mommy and Daddy are working. I realize Anya must be some kind of weird imaginary playmate, so I try to say something nice. I bet it's great having Anya around, especially if you're a little boy in a new town and you haven't met the other children yet. Exactly. Caroline is relieved that I've grasped the situation so quickly. That's exactly right. Is Anya here now? Is she in the room with us? Teddy glances around the den and returns to his drawing. No. Where is she? I don't know. Will you see her later tonight? I see her every night, Teddy says. She sleeps under my bed so I can hear her singing. Thank you, Doogie. I know you like that line. And then what happens from here is that Teddy's art becomes increasingly disturbing. He starts drawing things like this and like this. And as Mallory discovers these images, you're finding them too. And then early on in the book, about a third of the way through, something even stranger happens. I don't think I'm spoiling too much. His illustrations start getting better. She starts finding illustrations around the house with a sort of sophistication that is well beyond any 5-year-old. And she's just wondering, well, she's wondering two things. One, where are these illustrations coming from? And she also suspects that, you know, maybe these illustrations have some kind of message. Maybe they're telling some kind of story. And so she starts collecting them, and she refers to them several times throughout the book. And since this is a print book, you have all the pictures in front of you, you can refer to them too. So that is the, I'm going to hide my screen now, go back to the thing. That's the most unique aspect of the book. And I was really thrilled that these two guys, Will and Doogie did the illustrations in the first half that are really childlike, and Will did the more sophisticated adult illustrations in the second half. And I'm glad they could be here tonight to talk about how they approached it. Because anytime I asked them for something, invariably, whatever they gave me was way better than whatever I had imagined in my mind with my own limited visual imagination. So I'm kind of curious to hear what you guys have to say about how you approached this assignment. Doogie, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so Jason told me about the book, and I was immediately interested because I have a son, and he has an imaginary friend. My son's name is Kirby, and his imaginary friend is called Shadow Kirby. And it's just me talking in a high voice. So we spent a lot of time with his imaginary friend. And when Jason told me about the book, it was over the pandemic. And so my son and I had killed a lot of time by drawing together. And I had heard somewhere that if you're drawing with a kid, that it's good to draw in their style, because otherwise they'll see you drawing like an adult and they'll think, oh, that's the way I'm supposed to draw, and they'll get discouraged. So I'd gotten in the habit of trying to mimic my son's drawing style. And so when Jason asked me if I could draw like a kid, I knew that I could. Um, and let me see. Let me share my screen, and I'll show you some different art here, if I can figure out. What's the deal? Oh, is that it? There we go. Okay. Jason, can you guys see the bunny?
Yes, yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so this was Jason asked me if I could draw like a kid, and I knew that I could because I had done I've been drawing with my son a lot. So here's one of the pictures I did, one of the early ones. It's a bunny rabbit, and I drew all these pictures with my left hand to try to draw like a kid, and I drew a lot. And I'm going to show you now some of the outtakes. The first drawing that I tried to do was the two of them at the table, the cookies and milk scene. One of the biggest problems with this book was we didn't know what Anya should look like. And so I tried a lot of different designs. Here she was like a kind of shadow. I did this one. She's hanging upside down. I also tried different mediums. Like this is marker. This is marker. Marker. This one looked too heavy metal, too much like a Kiss or something. Tried pencil. This is another shadow one. This I thought was pretty spooky. But again, it's Anya had to look spooky. The drawings had to look spooky, but at the same time, they had to look like a kid really drew them. And we thought these looked too advanced. This one looked too advanced. When I got to this design, we liked this design. I put a little spider underneath the table. But Jason didn't like that she was flipped above the table, and I sort of agreed. And so he asked if we could try. Oh, I had her like at the table sharing the milk. I thought that actually looked funny. Um, and so then ultimately we decided to put her under the table. We thought that that would be the spookiest thing. Um, so like I said, I did all these drawings. I drew them left-handed. I hurt my shoulder. I drew left-handed so much. And I tried to do them really fast. I tried to not think about it too much. And I listened to I Want to Be Your Dog by the Stooges over and over again on repeat. So I was trying to get into some like other kind of headspace, some kind of like, I don't know, I was trying to think like a kid. Um, these are some outtakes from the first drawing of Teddy and Anya together. And again, this was when I didn't know, first of all, what is Anya going to look like, and then secondly, what's the drawing style, like how kiddish is it? We actually tried. I actually tried having my son draw some of them at the beginning because I thought, well, he's a kid. But it turns out when you have a real kid draw something, it's harder to control what you're gonna get, and like, we knew we wanted to have certain things in the drawings. We knew we wanted them to be scary, and his drawings just weren't scary enough. Here's some outtakes from the drag scene where he's dragging the body. These are pretty messed up. I look I look at these drawings now and I go, oh my god, what was I thinking? Who made these? Uh, these are some more outtakes from the drag scene. I tried a different angle. Um, and so I thought like, oh, it'd be cool if there was a spider in her mouth. It's pretty messed up, right? These are messed up. This is her getting dragged. This is a different angle. It's an overhead shot. I thought this angle wouldn't work though because I thought a kid wouldn't think like this. Like I'd had to think like a kid, and one way kids think is like the bottom of the page is the bottom of the ground. You know what I mean? And like the way they draw grass is line, 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 because they think like, well, that's what grass is. Grass is a bunch of lines, so I'll draw a bunch of lines. This is an outtake from the strangle scene, and the strangle scene was the hardest because the viewer had to understand that you're looking out of the killer's eyes at this thing the killer's doing, that they're strangling somebody, and so that requires perspective, like visual perspective. And kids don't really think in perspective. For them, they think, well, the paper's flat, so the drawing's flat. You know what I mean? So I drew this, but I thought it looked too mature, too adulty, and so I did this one, which again is a super messed up one. But you kind of couldn't tell he was strangling her because you can't really see the fingers. This was a tough one to draw. This is one that I'm like, how would a kid actually draw this? You know what I mean? So I had a lot of different outtakes from this one.
I remember when you sent me all these. You sent me like 15 of them, and you felt horrible. You're like, I just feel really bad about what I did.
Yeah, it did not feel good to make these drawings. I legitimately kind of upset to discover that I had these images inside me.
You took one
But
for the team, Doogie.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
I got them out, so maybe I'm okay now.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it.
So anyways, those were all different outtakes. I'm going to show you now some hidden pictures within the hidden pictures. Um, one thing I tried to do with the drawings was hide faces in them, because in the book, this is like Teddy's looking through the drawings at Anya. That's how they communicate with each other. And so I wanted to hide.
Don't spoil too much. People haven't read the book, so.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay.
I mean, I was just kidding about that part. Uh, so this bird bath kind of looks like a face. I don't know if you think it does, but like I tried to make like the bird's two eyes, like two eyeballs, and then the kind of bird bath kind of looks like a mouth. You know what I mean? And then the trees would kind of frame it like a neck or whatever. So I don't know if you think that one looks like a face, but that's what I was thinking. In the burial drawing, those flowers on the right-hand side, I try to make those look like hands that were bursting up out of the ground, like zombie hands. And I have them in some of the other drawings. This is the dude mowing grass, and I made the bottom of his lawnmower kind of look like a face. I also did that because I would think a kid would think of that too. They're like, oh, the lawnmower eats the grass. So I thought that one made sense also. This is a drawing of a house, and I hid some kind of ghostly faces in the bushes. I mean, I don't think the average reader would notice that, but it was just more like a nice extra bonus thing. And then these are two drawings that where I mimicked the composition. And so you can see here the pool kind of looks like the grave, and the diving board looks like the dude, and the bubbles even look like the dirt coming down. And you can see you got the same flowers on the right hand side in both of them. And that's it for me. I think that's all. How do I get back to the? I think that's all.
Oh, we're back, Doogie. It's all
Yeah,
set.
we're all good.
Nice.
So, Will, do you want
Cool.
to talk about how you approach the more advanced artwork?
Sure. Yeah, that was awesome, Doogie. I will share my screen here now.
Infinite screens.
Is that working or no?
I see your screen. It looks like a bunch of infinite screens, like the browser, the web browser.
Should I try this one more time? Sorry that we did this earlier and it worked just fine. So here, let me stop.
Oh, and Jason, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've been trying to mute, so every time I drink water, the people at home don't hear.
Glug, 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 glug.
I could hear you drinking water all through my reading, Doogie. You're supposed to mute your microphone. Oh, there we go.
There we
Oh, look at this.
Okay, there we go. So as was mentioned earlier in the intro, I am a graphic designer by trade, and I've been really fortunate over the years to work on a lot of fun books with really amazing authors. And so Jason reached out to me about Hidden Pictures and mentioned the idea of working on some possible interior illustrations, which is cool, but also very much not what I do. So I was a little bit nervous about taking on the challenge, especially when he started explaining that the drawings would be sort of to draw like a 6-year-old or a 5 or 6-year-old who was drawing better than their ability should be, which is not necessarily the easiest assignment to, draw with like someone drawing above their level of art. So I guess the question was, how do you draw like a 5-year-old super art genius? So I started off with trying to do some artwork that felt sort of like a talented junior high or high school student might do, some sort of kind of basic pencil sketches. This was actually a black crayon that I kind of shaved down to a thinner tip and started kind of doing some drawings that way. But I really wasn't loving the work. It just felt kind of flat and empty and just wasn't quite working for me. Even though it kind of felt like it was maybe to the level of like a talented 13 or 14-year-old student might be drawing, which felt kind of appropriate for the material. We even tried doing some stuff with kind of tinting or coloring it slightly in case it made sense that maybe Teddy was drawing with a different colored crayon or marker or something at some point, and maybe doing the book in a 2-color printing process.
I forgot all about that. We did talk about doing it with 2-color.
Yeah, but we decided just that didn't quite solve it, and I wasn't really happy with where these were at, and Jason wasn't either. And but fortunately, I did try a second approach as well, a more cinematic approach, basically. And I wanted to do something that was a little more evocative, a little more mysterious looking. And so I ended up sort of mixing some crayon drawings and some charcoal textures and sort of ended up landing on this approach, which was a mix of some scanned artwork and some digital layering. That image on the right is actually an outtake that we did not end up using for the book, but that was something that we were playing with at one point. So basically, Jason liked the look and feel of it, and I continued sort of on this approach, doing the other illustrations in the series, and started mocking the images up onto kind of torn sketchbook paper to give that idea that these were pieces of artwork that Teddy had drawn. And I like this idea of the art going right to the edges of the paper, kind of like this uncontrollable kind of, mania or something that he was drawing with. There's a couple more examples here, some other scenes. You get this idea of kind of this dark and light. Obviously, a lot of black kind of crayon and charcoal going into the artwork. Some scratch marks that I did as well. Like you can see some of the grass kind of reeds and stuff are actually kind of like almost like scratched away from the crayon or charcoal approach. And kind of one final set of things. Again, I don't want to share too much because there's some spoilers and stuff, but this gives you kind of a general idea of the approach, which is kind of atmospheric and creepy, but also feels a little more mature and cinematic than where I was initially with the initial comps.
This is exactly what I meant when I said that they were so much better than anything I imagined. I think I was imagining the first round,
yeah,
and then you did the second round.
Well, this is a bit more of a stretch story-wise and narrative-wise, but it just worked much better, I think, for the for a book of this kind of caliber. So I'm glad we went this way with it. So. So basically everything was going well. Jason had approved the approach, and basically my this comes into a little awkward conversation. So the project's going well, and my drawing table, this is an artist rendering of the drawing table because I didn't take a picture of it. My drawing table is slowly piling up with these creepy, illustrations of this book. And I'm working away on the illustrations, and suddenly my doorbell rings, and I go, oh, okay, and I go upstairs because I have my drawing table in the basement. And I answer the door, and it's this electrician that we had hired a week before to come handle some small little electrical problem. And I forgot all about that he was coming. And I said, yeah, I'll show you downstairs to where the electrical panel is. And I walk him downstairs to the sort of dark, dingy basement and past my studio into where the electrical panel is. And he walks past seeing all these drawings stacked up on this artboard. And yeah, he it was very, very awkward. There was a moment of silence that felt like it reached on for about 5 minutes. I'm sure it was much shorter than that, but it felt like it went on for a while. And, eventually I kind of fumbling my words, trying to explain what's going on and what I'm doing. And, he said, oh, I understand. Sure. But I don't think he did. So we just kind of left it at that. So
I'm an artist. You don't get it.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
I get it. You have a phone I could use? I'll be right back.
Right. He definitely went to grab his screwdriver just to have that, just in case things went sideways, I think. So, anyways, for a fairly serious book with some dark material, there's one kind of light note in that, in the process here. And then jumping from that, basically, I just want to go into some of the cover stuff, which is a bit more familiar territory for me. I wanted to show some of the cover outtakes and some directions of things that maybe could have been, but weren't quite. So the cover process, I've kind of summarized this as kids, crayons, and optical illusions. This was an outtake that I had done initially. And I believe actually a handful of these actually have Doogie's, some of his sketches and some of his drawings that he shared with me so I could work with that on. So I like this idea of this crayon casting the shadow of Teddy's face with this little icon for his eye. Oh, is Kirby here?
Hey, Kirby.
There might be some scary stuff come up here, Kirby. I apologize. This was a kind of optical illusion of a vase with a kid-drawn flower in it with the sort of two faces as the optical illusion at the bottom. Obviously playing on that idea of hidden pictures.
Cool one.
Oh, thank you, dude.
I didn't see either of these. Those are both great.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. Maybe something you never know what the paperback cover might be, but we'll see. I'm probably spoiling it right now for some future paperback edition. But this was another one where it was based on this idea of optical illusions. And it's obviously a kid's kind of drawing of a small little shed or house with a tree and a sun and some trees and a fence. But, the idea was for people to see this optical illusion of this skull, which apparently I thought was pretty clear, but some people had trouble with it. So I did try some other ones that kind of built on this and tried to clarify that concept a bit. Like this one, which basically has some kids, drawings that have been kind of torn and assembled to look sort of like a abstract skull.
That was the cover that I assumed we were going to use for final. Like when I saw that one, I thought, oh yeah, that's the cover.
It's a really nice cover.
Yeah, it's commercial, but still literary. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of good options here. I mean, obviously, I put in being good friends with Jason. I put in extra effort on these, so I think there's a lot of them that could have worked out. But and then there's another variation on this one, which I thought was pretty cool too, which is kind of like the pieces of artwork taped to the wall or something, or sitting on a floor curling up, and using that structure of the kind of art and stuff to kind of create that skull-like shape again. I like the little flower that's kind of the jaw line thing there. I thought that was kind of a nice little flourish.
Cool. With
some crayons on the side. This was more of a kind of direct thing of just kind of doing a silhouette of a head, but this, again, that sort of concept of the manic crayon lines that create this shape. And this was another one using some of at least one of Doogie's art pieces of art, maybe more, which was kind of a creased piece of paper with kind of a tear in the center of the flower that would reveal this, thing, which possibly could have been a die cut with a printed case or something, but maybe a little too weird perhaps for the book. And then this one is really quite disturbing in some ways, because it's just a piece of paper that's torn that has some drawings of people on it. But then if you look at it the right way, you kind of realize that you're looking up from sort of a shallow grave or something, up to the sky there. So,
man, it's a
and
lot.
then we have, and then we have sort of, it came down to these two for the final approvals at the editorial and publisher level and sales levels and stuff. And I think Jason had weighed in as well. And it ended up being kind of a tight race between these two, and we ended up with this as our cover. And unfortunately, this is an older version of the cover, so it's missing the wonderful Stephen King quote on the cover there, but you get the idea of it. So
I'd be curious to know. I don't know if anyone's still listening, or if but if people have opinions about the skull cover, could you go back one slide and show that one again? Yeah. Because when I first saw it, I looked at it, the one on the left, the white one. I looked at it for 10 minutes and I did not see a skull.
Really?
I just didn't see it, and I know other people who haven't seen it either. But then once you see it,
yes.
Okay.
Good job, Kirby.
Okay, Kirby, come on. But then now that I know it's there, that's all I see.
Yeah.
So if people prefer that one, put that in the comments. I want to know. I want to take natural Paul. I love the cover on the right.
I like the one on the right more.
So
yeah, I'm happy with all of them. I think we ended up in a good spot. So that kind of wraps it up. I don't know if you want me just to leave on this cover image, or okay, that works too.
Well, I think that's it from us. I don't know if there are questions in the comments.
Yeah. So I saw the skull too, and it could be I work in a mystery bookstore where we have skulls all over the place.
Skulls all the time.
And cozy mysteries, it's very much a trope to put like a skull hidden somewhere, like in a spill in the tea or something. So I definitely saw the skulls.
Yes.
Those. And I see lots of comments. I see the skull. Somebody else just said I see the skull, but I also see skulls everywhere. So it looks like most people in the comments did see the skulls. So
awesome. Wow.
So Will, what was it like to work on when you worked on covers for the other books that you showed us, or are those books that you had read before, or is it they give you kind of an idea and you have to come up with it? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Doogie can talk to this as well. He does cover design as well, but generally the process is that they will reach out to me, the art director will reach out to me with a proposal for a project, and basically send me a brief synopsis or a cover memo for it that tells me, the cover information and maybe a short synopsis, and then they will send me the manuscript as well. So I am very fortunate. I get to read lots of great books months and months before they come out into stores, and so it's really cool. And basically, what I do is my particular process is I will read the synopsis, do a handful of sketches, and then read the full manuscript, do another batch of sketches, and then usually put those two together. And in that batch of those two different directions, something hits, whether it's kind of a micro macro thing or something. But it's been really fun. I got to work on with a lot of great authors when I was at Harper, and then I went just freelance and had my own studio, and the work has continued to flow. So it's been good.
Yeah. And so, Doogie, then what's the process like for you?
For some of the covers I designed, the book wasn't even done yet because, like Jason said at Quirk, a lot of our books, we came up with the concept in-house. And so they were being written while I was designing them. But also our books at Quirk were more high concept, like with Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. You don't have to read the whole thing to know what it's about, or William Shakespeare's Star Wars, or Hope Rides Again, which was a Barack Obama, Joe Biden mystery. So a lot of our books were really high concept. So I didn't necessarily have to read the whole thing.
Yeah.
And also because our books weren't like ambiguous literary novels, we wanted like Will said, he does 2 different rounds of covers, one after he's heard the summary and one after he's read the whole thing. Yeah. And with our books, the cover was the marketing. And so we wanted the cover to look like the summary. So I didn't necessarily have to read the whole thing. I mean, a lot of times I did anyways, just because I wanted to, but it's different than designing the cover for a literary novel whose meaning is ambiguous or can be interpreted different ways.
We were inspired a little bit by Roger Corman, the B-movie producer, the famous B-movie producer, like Attack of the Crab Monsters. He would do this. He would make the poster before he made the movie. And if people responded well to the poster, he'd be like, okay, this is a movie I can do. And I think we would think about the covers that way.
Yeah.
This is how you start out when like writers will not come to you. You just have to by hook or by crook. You got to have books come out.
Yeah. So, Will, what was it like for this project then to work on a cover where you had to supply so much of the interior art as well?
Yeah, it was interesting because the interior art was done. I mean, generally what happens is that the covers are done very early in the process because obviously publishers want to promote with the covers and things like that, before the book's maybe even fully copy edited and things like that. This was a bit of a reversal because Jason, Doogie, and I have basically been working this thing in kind of pitch format. And so it was a little bit different working kind of reverse. It was also interesting because I did have the opportunity to work with Doogie and kind of borrow some of his artwork to see what might work on the cover. It was a bit atypical, but it was fun. I had no complaints. So.
And so, Jason, at what point in the writing process did you start soliciting drawings? Were you knowing what drawings you needed as you were writing, or when you were done, was it, hey, I need this, this, and this?
No, I mean, I started looping in these guys like really early on because it also just like getting their sketches like sort of motivated me to keep going. Because I was like, anytime you start a new project, you're like, is this going to work? You're writing you have like 40 pages. And you're like, I don't know, is this a book? Can I really do this? But if I had like 40 pages and 3 good images, it felt like more, so I would give them sometimes very specific instructions. Like I would say, I need a picture of a goat. And other times I would just be like, I just need pictures that are like this, and I try to give them as much leeway as possible. But there is an element, or there is a mystery to the book. There are clues embedded in the illustrations. There's a whole murder sequence of images that Mallory finds the pictures out of order, and then later in the book we see that same sequence again, like in the right order, and she finally understands what's happening in this house. And so those were kind of specific. There was like a lot of narrative information in those images that had to be there.
And were there any images that they gave you that inspired the story in a way that you didn't think it would?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, a lot of times they would give me something and I would go back and rewrite what I'd written to incorporate ideas that they had. And the final image is a great example. If you have the book, don't look at the ending because there's huge spoilers if you look at the final image. But I was like, this book needs this book should end with a picture. And I didn't really know what it was going to be until I saw one of the earliest pictures. And I was like, oh, well, that would be great. There will be like a kind of symmetry if the last image is kind of like an inversion of an earlier image that the reader saw. And so that's probably like the best example of like something that like the art in process literally changed how the story went.
And so through the process, you were showing us some of the outtakes and stuff like that. So did the three of you come to a consensus on what images were going to be used? And at any point, did like an editor or an agent chime in on their choices for images too?
No, I mean, we were in agreement about everything. And, you know, the big challenge for me was I was writing this book on spec. I didn't have a contract with the publisher. And I was really nervous about presenting the book to a publisher without all of the illustrations, because if you tell people what a picture is going to look like, everybody has a different idea of like what that picture is. I was like, we have to do all of them. And I said to these guys, I'm like, look, I don't have money. What we never even talked about money. They never asked for money. Will said he would do it if I bought him dinner. You know?
Still waiting.
For the love of the game, man.
I will never forget that. And I was like, no. So we all did everything on spec. And then when we turned it into the publisher, it was done. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't remember that we changed a single image.
And I think we sort of had to do it that way too, because there's these kind of puzzle elements that we had to, like the art kind of informed type sort of informed the art. So it was one of those things where it wasn't really a fully formed thing and didn't always make sense without the other component, it felt like. So
it was like pieces of the mystery would be missing if you didn't have the pictures. So we had to do it all.
And then, so you mentioned that the cover doesn't have the Stephen King quote, and Stephen King tweeted yesterday that Hidden Pictures was a one-of-a-kind thriller in stores now. Buy it and save it for the weekend. You won't put it down. And I know that he said he loved it. So what was it like to get that Stephen King blurb for it?
That was pretty amazing. I mean, we're all fans. And if I, could dream of anybody to, have a blurb from, it was him.
Came in on the New Year too, right? The first day of the New Year, right?
New Year's Day. And I said to my wife, I'm like, I'm done. I've peaked. Like, this is it. Whatever happens to this book, whether we sell, 10 copies or whatever,
Yeah, it's so great to see him be so supportive of the thriller crime genre. We were really lucky enough 2 years ago for, I think, on when they postponed Independent Bookstore Day, he did a virtual event with us and got to interview. It was amazing. He got to interview James Lee Burke, who he's a huge fan of. So we got to do this virtual event with the two of them. And we were like, Stephen, do you mind like logging in just a few minutes early so like the staff can all stay high on Zoom? And he's like, oh yeah, I'm happy to chat. It was one of the coolest things I've done in my like 12 years as a bookseller at Murder by the Book.
Yeah, he's incredibly generous, and let him be an example to everybody, because if everybody was that nice, the world would be a better place.
So we'll start with Jason, and I'll ask all three of you, but we'll start with Jason. What's something that you've read lately that you've loved?
Something that I've read lately that I love. Oh boy. I just started reading it last night. It's kind of an old book, but I saw it. It's been out of print for a long time. I'm a big fan of Walter Tevis. I don't know if people remember Walter Tevis. He wrote, he's sort of most famous for writing like The Hustler, and but then he also wrote The Man Who Fell to Earth, which is now, what happened with Walter Tevis was The Queen's Gambit, which is an incredible novel about a girl chess player. Scott Frank did this amazing Netflix adaptation that was wildly popular during the pandemic. And Scott Frank is also a huge Walter Tevis fan. And now, thanks to Scott Frank, all of Walter Tevis's books are back in print. And I was in a bookstore yesterday, Moravian bookstore in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And
that's a good one.
Yeah, it is. It's really nice. They had The Steps to the Sun, which is a science fiction novel that he wrote that I've been looking for it for years. I've never been able to find it. It's been out of print. And so I just started reading it last night. It's pretty good. But if you're starting Walter Tevis for the first time, I would say Queen's Gambit, amazing book, even if you've read the show. Man Who Fell to Earth, also just killer sci-fi novel.
How about you, Doogie?
My favorite books that I read recently were The Postman Always Rings Twice,
Yes.
which I really liked. It's just so it hits you hard and it hits you fast. And he's so good at writing. It feels very real, you know, it just feels like a dude telling you this thing that happened, and it's dark, but it's not depressing somehow. I don't know how he pulled it off. I also really liked Grendel by John Gardner. It's Beowulf told from the monster's perspective. That was really, really, really good. And then I just started reading A Movable Feast, which is great. I haven't read Hemingway since like college, and it's just a really simply written, it's a memoir about his days in Paris when he was younger. And it's just really simply written, kind of nice book. He always describes what he's eating, you know, which is nice in the book. You're like, ooh, the oysters were salty.
You're really selling it.
And how about you, Will?
I'm sort of in this weird situation where I wish I had more time to read for leisure. Most of my reading is professional, which is actually great because the books I get to work on are books I would read anyways. So it kind of works out that way. As far as mystery stuff goes, I've been doing a bunch of Anthony Horowitz books for the last handful of years. And there's a new one coming out called, I believe it's called The Twist of the Knife or Twist of a Knife. Which is part of the Word is Murder and all that series. And it's fantastic. Everyone will love that when it comes out. Something that's out now is there's a book called How High We Go in the Dark, which is by Sequoia Nagamatsu, I believe I'm saying that right. I did the cover for that as well. It's sort of sci-fi, kind of near future. And it's heavy and it's sad in parts, but it's really beautifully written. And that was really nice. But yeah, I would... But definitely the Horowitz stuff is a go-to for any occasion. So
yeah, he's a big favorite with us at the store too. So Jason, we mentioned in the bio that you had worked with Quirk Books and you had done, like you said, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and the Ransom Riggs books. Did working on those kind of help you know how like the images and stuff we're going to read when you were doing this one, as far as like layout and things like that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, because again, like I would say, like all that work sort of informed Hidden Pictures. I am talking about the successes, but there were things we tried at Quirk that did not work at all. Like we tried doing this book once; it didn't have a binding, which is not a good idea. Like you can imagine how much booksellers would hate a book that doesn't have a binding, because if a customer drops it in the store, it's just a pile of paper.
Yeah.
So yeah, all those projects. Helped inform this. Another great example is like we thought about, well, okay, this is about a 5-year-old boy drawing with, he's probably using crayons. Can this book be 4-color? You know, and then I was like, well, how hard is it going to be to convince a publisher to print a whole novel, a 400-page novel in full color? It's going to be really expensive to print. You know, it's going to raise the price well beyond what a novel should cost. So, you know, just having that kind of knowledge informed the direction of this project.
Awesome. Perfect. So I think that is going to about do it for us this evening. But to recap for anyone who might have joined us late, if you did join us late, once we are done, Facebook and YouTube will archive the event, so you'll be able to go back and rewatch it, as well as the other virtual events that we have been doing. But we have been chatting with Jason Rekulak, whose book Hidden Pictures has just come out, and we've been chatting with illustrators Doogie Horner and Will Staehle. And I hope if you did miss any part of it, you'll go back and look at the illustrations and all the stuff that they did. If you were looking to order copies, I dropped links in the comments so you can order copies from us. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. It's really cool to get to see when the publicist mentioned having you guys as illustrators come in. We've done so many of these. It's really cool to get to do one that's different and kind of get a different perspective on how the book came together. So thank you so much for this tonight.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for having us.
A lot of fun.
Thank you.
Y'all take care.
All right.